Welcome back to another episode of 5 Minutes Later, where it's my job to take the scariest urban legends from around the world and bring them to life in cinematic form. If you like scary stories, creepypastas, unsolved mysteries, then make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can catch our new episode every single Friday at 8 a.m. Arizona time. Also, don't forget to check out our podcast available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Now let's get into this week's story, which is titled Possessed and Forgotten. This story comes from a Reddit user. I was an au pair in a wealthy family's home. Parents were mostly absent and left me to take care of the 3 kids. Ages 9, 6, and 2. The house had no internet or cell phone service, which was fine because they gave me a landline in case of emergency and made it very clear that I was not allowed to leave the property for any reason. On the first night after the parents left and the children were asleep, I began exploring. The layout of the house felt oddly familiar, like déjà vu on steroids. Everything was in its place, and it felt like no one had lived there in years. It was eerie. I checked all the locks and found that only the front door had a working keyhole. All the other doors just pushed open. The bedrooms were all empty except for the children's room. Their beds were huge, far too big for small children, and the walls were covered with crayon drawings. I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. I tried calling the parents to ask questions about the house, but the line was dead. No signal. I tried again in the morning, and still nothing. With no answers and feeling weirded out, I decided to focus on preparing breakfast for the children and settled in for what would be a very strange week. I discovered that the power went out automatically each night at 11 p.m. and came back on at 7 a.m., and that there was no way to control it. The TV didn't have a remote and seemed to change channels on its own. Then it would start playing old black and white horror movies. There were some books lying around the living room, so I started reading them when I wasn't busy. They were old and creepy. One was titled How to Summon Spirits. Another was a journal of some kind, detailing strange rituals and experiments conducted by the previous owner of the house. I remember writing something along the lines of, "I must resist the urge to perform these rituals, even if it means certain death before falling asleep." The next day, I heard scratching noises coming from inside one of the walls. I called out to the kids, but they were outside playing and I could hear them respond. At first I thought it was just a mouse or some other small animal, but the noise continued all day long. Every night when I went to sleep, I would hear the sound of dragging metal moans. I never saw anything, but I could hear footsteps near my bedroom, like someone walking back and forth slowly. Then I would hear whispering, but only when I closed my eyes. As soon as I opened them, the sounds stopped. I would see the children standing by my bed sometimes, but they always looked different, like their eyes would glow red. Then they would walk away, and I'd hear their voices, distorted and inhuman. The whispering drove me insane. I couldn't focus on anything else, and I became terrified to close my eyes. One day, the oldest child asked me if I had seen his sister. She hadn't come out of her room for days, and he was worried. Of course I said no, but we can go check on her. He nodded and held my hand. We walked down the long hallway towards his sister's room. The baby sister hadn't come out since Sunday, so we were getting worried. But as we got closer, the scratching sounds started up again. Then we heard a knock coming from inside the room. It sounded like someone knocking the wall from the other side. We stood there listening intently. Then the knocking stopped and we both stared at the door, frozen in fear. Then the oldest child screamed and ran. I didn't know if he was afraid of whatever was in there, or if he was trying to get away from me, but I chased after him. As I rounded the corner, I tripped over something and fell face first onto the floor. When I looked up, the oldest boy was kneeling next to me and he whispered urgently, "Don't go in there. Whatever you do, don't go in there." Before I could respond, he turned and ran away. Shaking and confused, I slowly got to my feet and walked towards the source of the noise. As I approached the room, I heard the scratching again. Then I heard a knock. I knocked on the door and yelled, "Hello," but there was no reply. I pushed the door open and walked in. It was a child's bedroom. The wallpaper was peeling off the walls. The closet door was hanging off its hinges, and the mattress on the bed was covered with what looked like bloodstains. And in the corner of the room was a wooden chest. I knew instinctively that the chest was the source of the sound. I walked over and knelt beside it. The wood was smooth and cool to the touch, and I could feel vibrations coming from inside. I hesitated for a moment, then lifted the lid. There was nothing in the box. Puzzled, I opened it wider and stared inside. That's when I saw it. A narrow crack in the wood at the bottom. I reached inside and felt something soft. I pulled it out, and my heart skipped a beat. It was a doll. It had no face and a jagged, uneven grin carved into the wood. Then I noticed two things pinned to its dress, two keys. They were identical except for the fact that one was slightly larger than the other. I tried the smaller key in the lock of the bedroom door and it fit. Relieved that I now had a way to escape the room, I turned to leave. That's when I heard a voice behind me say, "Oh, so you found the box." I whirled around and saw the little girl standing there. She had no eyes, and her mouth was twisted into a horrifying smile. Then she vanished. I screamed and ran for the front door, fumbling with the key. I managed to get it open and stumbled outside. I ran as fast as I could, not daring to look back. I could hear the little girl screaming and laughing, urging me to go faster, to run for my life. I didn't stop until I reached the main road. Then I started walking, hitchhiking, thumbing rides, doing whatever I could to get away from that house. I never looked back. I still have the keys somewhere, though I don't know where. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear scratching coming from inside my walls. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, then check out this playlist right here for more scary stories. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community to suggest future story ideas. Lastly, I want to give a huge shout out to our supporters whose names you can see on screen right now. If you would like to see your name on the screen and show the world that you are indeed a legend yourself, then check the link below to find out how you can support us. Till next time, sleep tight and don't let the bed bugs bite.